Once more. So in our previous class, we continued with our Epic Notes app authentication, where we implemented both the register and the login. But unfortunately, we encountered an error, which we were unable to debug due to time. So today we will fix that error and go over what we've done so far. That's under authentication. So that in our previous, in our next class, we will be able to move over to creating notes for authenticated users and allowing unauthenticated users to also read notes. But for you to create, delete, or update a note, you have to be authenticated, because you can't delete a note that is not yours or even update it. But you can view a note that is not yours. So in our next class, we'll be able to implement all of those, and we will optimize our application and make it ready for deployment, so we can deploy it to production. So under authentication, we were able to set up Prisma. We also authentication system. We implemented the authentication system, created the details, the user details, implemented user service and module. Then finally, but we couldn't complete this. We were able to create details for login, register. We created the authentication guard, which includes session auth guard and current user decorator. We also created the authentication service and controller with the module included, but we were unable to register and log in users successfully. So we'll be looking at that today, why we were unable to do that. And okay, so let me just quickly open VS Code. Today's class is going to be a brief one. We're not going to take much of our time. So let me zoom in. Yeah. So this is our auth controller. This is for Swagger, API tags, authentication. The controller is auth. And we have a route here for register. That is auth/register. And the response will be a 201 response that is created. We have another route, which is for login. And here we'll log in the user, make sure we log in the user. We'll say the user ID and the session of objects and also the user. Then we'll return the authenticated user. But because the session here is of key string and value of any, that's why we're making TypeScript happy by bringing ESLint. We are disabling it here. Okay, so let me just close all of this. Yeah, so this one here is a min route where we can actually get the user's profile if they are logged in. And we have the logout route, which we implemented. Here we set the user ID on the session object to null, set the user and the user also to null. That means the user is no longer authenticated. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's also look at the auth module. There's nothing serious here. We're basically importing user module to be used in the auth module. The providers, we have the auth service, which is the provider. We have controllers, which is the auth controller, and we also export the auth service that can be used somewhere else, like while creating notes or something like that. But we'll look at this when we want to create notes for authenticated users. Now we have the auth service here. And the auth service, we have, move this, the register, log in, and get user profile. Great. So let's quickly start application, try to register a user, and we'll see why we couldn't do that in our previous class. So npm run start there. So while application is starting up, let me open, so we'll go over here and we'll see npx Prisma Studio. So let's open up Prisma Studio. So we have one user we created, but then was not, let me just quickly delete this. We have password here, one, and we have user here, 20 at max. This is the last user we created. And look at their password. But because in our Prisma schema, where is our Prisma schema? Password. It says here that if a user is deleted, their password should also be deleted. They will have on-delete cascade and all updates cascade as well. So if you delete the user, the password will be deleted with them. So we don't have orphaned records in our database. Our database is always clean. So if I come over here and delete this user, if you go back to the password, we no longer have a password. Everything is deleted. The user doesn't even have a note. That's great. Okay, so now that we've started our application, if we want to, let me quickly open up Postman. Yeah, so this is the last user we created. So let's change it as Tony at max.com, and here is the password. So we'll go to this/auth/register. And the reason why it's like this is because in our routes, in our auth controller, we have at controller auth. So we'll first of all go /auth, and then the route here is we'll post to the register route, where we grab the body from the register DTO and the session. So from here, we'll grab the body, we first of all register the user, add the user to our database, and then add the user also to the session and return the user. So let's go ahead and do that. So now that we have Tony Max, let's go ahead and register Tony Max. So if I send this, so we have Tony Max registered. Now let's look at the cookies. Connect session ID. So this is the session ID, and the path is / expires 26 August 10/20 10/20. So okay, we'll check that out. So the path is the root directory, and the domain is localhost. HTTP only true, and it is not secured because it is not HTTP secured. It's just HTTP. So this is the value of a cookie actually. So we can look at our headers, X powered by Express. You know, the default framework used by Next.js is Express.js. powered by Express. Content length is 154. E tag set cookie connect.sid is equal to this. This is the cookie. So every time a request is being sent, to be sent along with this, so the server can use to verify the authenticated user's access. So the status code here is 201. A new resource was created successfully. That's great. So this is the body. This is the user that is created. So he was created on 26th August 1925, updated at name Tony Max, email tony@max.com, and the ID is this. Okay, so that's great. Now, if you go back to our Prisma Studio and refresh, we'll see the user, tony@max.com. It's Tony Max. If we go to the password, we'll see the hash here, password hash, and we'll see the user ID. If you can come here and even expand this, you can be able to see the name, the email, the ID, no notes, 0 items, created as, and the password, you see the password hash here. Great. So we can see this in our database, but if we don't know 20 marks password, we will just see the hash and we cannot be able to decrypt it. That's good. So moving on, we've created 20 marks and added into our database, but previously we were not able to do that. And that's simply because we were supposed to do this. We were supposed to set session from Express session in the root of our project. So this is the secret, the session secret, because every session is encrypted. So this is the cookie. In the session, the cookie will be used to verify the session. So we have the session max age. We have HTTP only true. This will be secured when we deploy our app to production. But we're only using this in development. When we want to deploy our app to production, we'll properly set this. Okay, so right now, set our session in the root of our project, and now it's working correctly. So let's try to log in and see if Tony Max exists in our database. So we can go over to, so let's just quickly change this to login. Remove the name, because we can log in with the email and password. So if I go ahead and say, okay, because 3000 auth login, send. So this is Tony Max. We already have him in our database. And here is Tony Max and Tony Max data. So if I come over here, so the status code is 201. I don't know why. Let's refresh and see. Okay, the same Tony Max. We have gotten an error. So, but the status code here is 201. And why is it so? Well, it's supposed to be 200. You can see the cookie connect SID, this. And so we can come over here. I guess, should we say, no, is it the session that should have a name or the cookie? I've actually forgotten. Name should be, let's say, epic note session, like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's post to log out. Yeah. Epic note session. So this is the name of the session now. We've given our session a name and the value. That's great. So let's go to /me. 404 not found. So what's not found? Cannot post /me not found. Status code 404. Okay, so I guess we should be posting with the user. Let's first of all log in. /log in. And now we have the user's ID. So I guess that's all that's required to get the user. So let's look at the auth controller and the mean route. We have login, we have mean, auth/mean, the user ID. That's great. So if you come over here, remove this, see user ID. Should be a string. Is it supposed to be form data, or it's supposed to be auth/mean current user this get mean current user ID this? Let's look at the auth service, login, get user profile, user ID. Okay. So let's send this request real quick. Okay, it's a get request, not post. Change this to get. Let's try this once more. Great. And we have 200 ID, this name, Tony Max, email, 21. So we can come over here, the auth controller, and we can see in the mean route, auth service is a mean route here. User find by ID, user ID. So if we have a find by ID, in the user service, find by ID, this. And now we can come over here, we can say include notes. I will say true, like this. So now if you try to, we want to get the user and their notes at the same time. So if you send this, internet server error. So what is the error now? So let's check what the error is. Where at least one ID or user. Okay. See, select notes. Okay. The reason why is because while returning new user response DTO. Okay, so let's say return user. I will get an error in the auth service because this expects this. So we can basically do away with this for now and save. So in here, save, get user profile. Okay, so we have to fix the user detail to extend in order to return together with their note. So let's try this and see. Okay, internet server error. Okay, which is not possible. Service. Okay, so that's the use of strongly typing your app. So now we cannot return a user with their notes. We can only return a user, then basically use the user's ID to fetch their notes. Or later on, we can modify this app to actually get the user their notes at the same time. So we don't have to make multiple requests to get a user and then later on get their notes as well. So what's the problem here again? Okay, auth service, user service. Where ID this. User service TS61. ID is undefined. Okay, so what's the problem now? Because this just works and I can't seem to. Okay, let's take a look at the ID because the ID is kind of, we're getting undefined. Hmm. Okay, so here we still have this. Oh, wow. So what's happening? One of ID or email argument available options are marked with. So this is telling us that we need an ID, find by ID, which is coming from the user service. User equals with this Prisma user find unique ID. User ID. Wow. With service, auth controller. So the controller here is /main user ID, which is a string, get user profile user ID. So ID. Okay, so it seems we are logged out. Okay. /login. I say, okay, this is email, which is tony@max.com. Password. Email tony@max.com. Password. Send this. Post request, send. Okay, so now we are signed in. But then I wonder why this keeps 201 created. So let's try to see if we can figure out this 201 created instead of 200. Okay, so user service. Auth service, auth controller. So in our auth controller, we have at API response 201 user successfully registered. Okay, so let's look at the details. We have the register DTO. We have the login DTO, description, email, API property, password. Great. So let's look at the user details. Create user DTO. API property, this is User response detail. API property ID, name, email created at, updated at. Okay. In our auth controller here, bad request response. User with email already exists. Login user, API response, user successfully logged in, type is invalid credentials, post login. The body is login detail, session this, login. Okay. Okay. So I guess it's actually a default behavior with Nest.js if it is a post request, because we are not creating a record. We're just posting data to retrieve a record, but I think it's a default behavior. So now we can go ahead. Now that we have a user, we can try this once more. And now we have our user ID. Did I not? Okay, let's look at the body. I guess I have the user ID here. Yeah. User ID. Paste it here and make this get request. Oops. Cookies. And there's no cookie. Oh, wow. Interesting. Twitter doesn't want me. User ID is undefined. So we logged the user ID here and it is undefined. Get user profile. Auth controller. Get user profile, user ID. At current user ID, which is user ID, coming from user guard, session auth guard. The main route. So this is weird. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so now we can catch this error here and log it to the console. Get user profile, user ID. So let's try this once more and see. So now it's here. So it's saying the ID is undefined. Wow. Okay, so let's take this debugging to another level. We have the main route, auth main route, current user ID. Okay. Come over here. Posts, login. We shall email. Email. Password. Tony at max. So let's log in once more. We have this cookie here, right? Change to get. And here we have /min. 400 bad request. Unexpected end of JSON. Okay. Great. So we're making a mistake. Now that we are logged in, we can just go to the main route, and we already have a cookie that will send along that it will automatically be verified. So I was sending along the user ID, which was wrong. So now that we have the cookie, we already have this cookie here, the cookie value. Anytime you send a request, it will be sent along with the cookie to authenticate, to make sure you are who you think or who you say you are. So there's no body, just visit the main route, and we can do this once more. And we have the user, the name, email, created that, updated, and the user ID. So that's great. And now we can go ahead and log out. And now if I send this request, it's a post request. Successfully logged out. If you come over here, you will see this cookie. But if you change this to get, and you go over here and do this to like me, now we see a 500 bad request, internet server error. But we'll handle this. We have to send a meaningful error message. Now we're no longer logged in. This is expired on the server. It's removed from the session object, and you can no longer access the session. So that's good. So now we can log in, log out. We can see if user ID throw unauthorized exception. So let's go ahead and try once more. 41 unauthorized. Great. Come to the body, you see message unauthorized. The status code is 41. Great. So now we are good. So you can come to the, let's take a look at our decorators once more. This request to show user ID, and that's this user ID. We have guards. We can come over here and check. Request this is not equal to undefined. So this is where we're getting the cookie from the request to actually authenticate our users. So if the cookie is undefined, it will return false. Or if the cookie is defined, it will return true. So this is a guard, and you can check out how guards work in Nest.js. So all we had to do was to come over here, set this, the secrets, the session secrets. We cannot reserve this session, we'll talk about this, all of this in our next class. It's HTTP only. So you cannot access our application using another protocol. It must be hypertext transfer protocol. And it is not secured because we don't want to secure it in development, but it should be secured in production. We can come over here and say, okay, this should be, I think the path, the cookie path, it should be here. Yeah, path should be this. And if you don't want the path to be, you can say the path should be /auth. And this cookie will only exist if you visit the auth route. That is auth login, register, and all of that. But in our next class, we'll discuss all about the cookie and all of those things. But for now, we've set up authentication and we are good to go. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to set up a note where we can be able to create notes, authenticate, and all of that. So after setting up notes and doing everything, we will write unit tests for both authentication and the notes module where we can retrieve notes. So if this is in the browser, when you're logged in, if you open your browser, you will see this EN session, which is Epic Notes session, but it's not a browser. We're here. This serves as our browser. So if you open here, you see this cookie, Epic Notes session. The value is this. The domain is localhost. And if you want it to be more protective, you can say the domain. If you're in production, you say the domain. It expired at so and HTTP only true, secured is false. And that's okay. So this is basically our app. This is the authentication system. So we have the users service, where you can create a user, find by email, get user password, find by ID, validate user. Here we're validating the user by using bcrypt compare the user's password hash and the entered password. Then we also have the users module, where we're importing config module and Prisma module to use to be able to save the user. And from there, we import the users module in our auth module so we can be able to create users. So we post the register route, we create a user, save them to the database, add them to the session because they're authenticated so that in subsequent requests, they will use their user ID. The guard will verify their user ID and their authenticity to be able to access resources and all of that. So after the guard verifies, it will pass it down to this level. This if it is login, there's no guard yet, but we have this session. So this will be added to the session object and stored on the server. So that when next they make a request, now when we make this request, they're already authenticated. So if they're authenticated, we get the user ID, which we can be able to get their user profile. But if they're not authenticated, we throw this new unauthorized exception. Okay, so we can just log this here in order to. So if you want to log out, we just post to this route, log out, and here we grab the session, we set the user ID to null, the session, the user on the session also to null, and we will return this message successfully logged out. Great. So we've completed our authentication, and this is very, very basic. But because we don't have that much time to talk about, third-party authentication, or let's say authenticating with GitHub and Google and all of that. So by doing that, we have to mock the APIs in development. I would have used that to teach you how to mock, test, and when going to production, you will use the GitHub or Google API directly to authenticate. But if you still have time after everything, we'll go into that. But for now, we've focused on the basic things: authentication, creating notes for authenticated users, and finally optimizing our application for deployment. So now that we've solved our issue and we've been able to log in and retrieve a login user, guess that will be all for today. So if you have any questions, we can go ahead and discuss. Any questions so far?
Yes, sir. Mine is